Okay. Hey everybody, I'm looking this way because I'm looking at comments. Gonna let it play for a minute. Let people join. Everybody asked me what this piece is. This is Aiden Essen. This is an improv that he did. And I think it's like the perfect introduction music. Dylan's good. I'm supposed to work, stop these lives. Write to me where you're from, everybody, when you're joining. I saw you just join, Peter. I'm doing this lesson because you suggested it. Episode. India. Oh man, Sweden, Idaho, Norway, India, Jersey. There we go. Italy. My hometown. My home country. Philippines, India. London. Finland. Oh man, it's cooking now. Woo! Smoking. Keep joining. You can. I think you can share these too. Oh yeah, keep joining. So I have a special guest here. He's off camera, but it's my assistant, if you want to call him the engineer and right-hand man for 17 years. Ken Lanyon, who's been working for me, literally working with me for 17 years. He's right here. He doesn't want to be in the picture. Come in, though. He's helping me out today. If you can put up with me for 17 years, that tells you something right there. Well, I have this video later. Yes, so here's the deal. As you're leaving comments here, they do not get saved. So when the video's done, repost your comments. Copy and paste them. If you have questions, I want to know where everybody's from. Write down where you're from. And if you have any questions for me, have any topics of anything you want me to talk about, but you can leave them in here too. And when I get into my, on the whiteboard here, Ken's going to actually field some questions for me too. He knows he'll just look at it and stop them because they come up really fast. Saratoga Springs. I love Saratoga Springs. Haven't been there in a long time. Did somebody say they didn't know I was Italian? Where is that? Wow, I'm Italian. 100% Italian. Actually, that's not true. So I'm going to tell you this. So I had my wife bought me Ancestry.com. Do you guys know what that is? It's where does your genetic testing and does your heritage. Well, my heritage is all over the place. All my grandparents came from Italy. So 3 of my grandparents came from Sicily, and my dad's dad, Grandpa Beato, who I never met, he died in 1955, Luigi. He came from actually Italy proper, but all my mom's parents and my dad's mom came from Palermo, Sicily. So when I did my DNA test, I found out that I am, I want to say 62% from, that area of Southern Europe. But I also have, I'm not, hold on, it just paused for a second. There we go. So I'm 9% British. I am part Middle Eastern. I'm part North African. I'm part Eastern European. Hold on one second. Tell Andy, he just called in. Can you call him and tell him not to call me right now? Text him. Sweden. So I have an actually incredibly diverse ethnic background that I did not realize, all the way over to, just all over the place, all over Europe, even into Northern Europe, into Germany, into Eastern Europe. But mainly, 60 some odd percent in Italy, though, in that area. But like I said, all my grandparents were Italian. They all spoke Italian. They all came over here the early part of the 20th century. My dad was born 98 years ago, so FYI, kind of interesting. And my last name means blessed in Italian. That I know. How cool is that? Can I do a video on Hindemith's harmonic system? Yeah, you know what? Hindemith is probably the most underrated and underspoken about 20th century composer. Yes, I absolutely will do. Step 1, be trained by 3. Okay, so I'd like to thank you guys for watching. I've had some pretty interesting videos over the past week that you guys have seen. If you haven't seen my video on Aydin Essen, who is the greatest improviser alive that I've ever met, that I've ever heard, and I did like a mini documentary on him. He's a dear friend of mine, and he's literally the only person I've ever seen who played things that I couldn't believe over and over and over, that I thought were impossible, that I've never heard any improviser, and I've heard a lot of improvisers, and I've been watching YouTube for years. I've never heard anyone that can do the things Aydin can do. His brain moves. It's just inconceivable, the thing that he knows. He's the only person I know that has an ear that is better than Dylan's too, because Aydin can play anything instantly that he hears. So he can hear those polychords and he can put his hands on them. Just like Dylan can write the things down, Aydin can do that, and Aydin can play the things a split second later. I mean, it's unbelievable. And can solfege better than anyone I've ever seen either. And that's, so to have perfect pitch and to be able to solfege unbelievably well is really amazing. And the Turkish education system that Aydin went through at Istanbul Conservatory is absolutely top notch, because Aydin is unbelievably gifted as you can be, and had a phenomenally good education. And told me that his teachers would slap his hands with a ruler if his hand position got out of didn't curve his fingers or curve his wrists or whatever, and would laugh about it. Anyways, so today's episode, I'm talking about musical memory, or how to improve your memory, how to improve your musical memory. Now, musical memory, this isn't really necessarily how to improve your sense of pitch and pitch memory, although it's all related. It's really how do you learn things the quickest. I put up a lot of theory. I know a lot of stuff goes over people's heads if they don't have a background in it and they're just jumping in. And I don't really explain things, because when I started my channel, I expected a certain level of musicianship, of expected musicianship. And I have my book, for those of you that are interested, that don't understand everything I'm talking about, my Beato book that is available, that actually starts from scratch with all these concepts. It's 300 some odd pages, but explains them, and it talks about really all the same kind of things, like, if you're talking about, line construction, about modes, about polychords, about bitonal chords, formulas for all these things, rules for reharmonization, everything like that. It goes into all this. So for those of you that feel like, oh, I'm not really grasping this stuff, how do I get a handle on it? Write to me, rickbeato1@gmail.com, and I'll give you information about getting my book. Somebody wrote to me the other day and it said, am I talking to Rick Beato or the machine? And I don't have a machine. I respond to emails. I respond to everything I possibly can. I get hundreds of emails a day, and I get many messages on here. I try to comment on as many things, but I have so many videos that it's hard to comment on things. I think I have 160 videos right now, but I'm going to have many more than that, so it's really going to be hard to comment. I'm also going to reorganize everything into better playlists than I have. I want to playlists, film scoring playlist, ear training playlist, music theory playlist, scales and modes playlist, just more. I want to get more granular on the playlist, so it's easier to go through. Somebody says, okay, can an adult or teenager train their ear like Dylan, or something only be taught from a young age? You can only develop perfect pitch as a baby. Now, you'll have people on here that will argue with me on here, but they're wrong if they argue with me about this. And I'll tell you why. I'll give you my simple example. If ear training and musical aptitude, and practice, you were able to develop perfect pitch, everyone that came out of music school, everyone that went to ear training class would have perfect pitch, especially at the top music conservatories. I went to New England Conservatory. I have friends that went to Eastman. I have friends that went to Juilliard. I have friends that went to all these things. I know teachers that teach at these places. None of them have ever had, that I've spoken to, ever had a student come in that didn't have perfect pitch that left school left school with perfect pitch. It's developed as a baby when you're developing your native language skills, okay? And I've seen this with my son Dylan. I've seen this with a couple of my kids. I don't put my girls on video. I mean, I do occasionally everything. I don't put my little daughter on video and everything. She doesn't behave when I try and do video. I tried to do a pie video, and it took me like 40 takes because she just makes the other kids crack up, and she makes faces and she makes weird sounds. Anyways, you've seen her actually walk in on some of my videos. I think there's one video where she walked in the middle of it and surprised me. It was very fun. Anyway, so perfect pitch is developed by babies. It's native music fluency. Think of it like that. That does not mean you can't develop your ear to be incredibly good, because I don't have perfect pitch, but my relative pitch is so good, I can listen to any of these film scores and I know exactly what they're doing. I can listen to jazz tunes, I know what chords are being played. I can sing notes off the top of my head that are the correct notes. So ear training is just that. It's training your ear and improving your pitch memory. So that's something that is practiced. When I was growing up, they had a thing called the Seashore Test that they stopped giving people, I want to say probably around 1980. They did it in upstate New York, where I grew up, in the public schools. And it's a musical aptitude test. It was developed, I believe, in the 50s or maybe earlier. The guy's last name was Seashore. I think it's Charles Seashore or something like that, but you can Google it. Anyways, he developed this ear training test. Is this note higher or lower? All these different comparisons in pitch. And the people in my school district that got the highest scores, in the first batch of people got to play string instruments, and the second batch of people got to play wind instruments. Wind instruments, they started a year later. I think it was string instruments in third grade, wind instruments in fourth grade, I believe. And they did this because the wind instruments were harder, physicality-wise, to play for smaller kids. And kids that had the best ears, they put on string players. Okay, so I got the highest score on the test. Well, so did a lot of people. I mean, but they retested kids. This is what was fascinating. Our orchestra program, which had 11 full-time faculties in a public school in upstate New York in the 60s and 70s, they retested seniors with the same test, and they said that virtually all of them got the same score. So their ear didn't get any better on this test from when they were, and they did this year after year after year and kept this data on it. It's absolutely fascinating. I'd love to go back and talk to them about this. Although my orchestra director, I don't know if he's still alive, he'd probably be 80 years old by now. I mean, this is a long time ago. I started in the 60s playing cello. Anyways, so would I consider myself to be primarily a jazzer or classical? What's my musical background? Both. I started in classical music up until I was 13. I played only classical music, listened to jazz because my dad listened to jazz all the time, and listened to rock music. I mean, rock is really kind of what I grew up on, is the Beatles, the Stones, Led Zeppelin, all things in the late 60s, early 70s, Black Sabbath, The Who, Pink Floyd. I'm looking around here, Jimi Hendrix. These are the posters I have literally right around me that I'm looking at. So this is kind of my musical background, was that and classical music. So I started on the cello. I played that until I was in seventh grade, and I switched over to bass, and then I went on bass through my undergraduate degree, which was in classical bass and Suzuki string. So I'm actually a certified Suzuki music teacher, string teacher. So I had to go to the Suzuki Institute where I did my undergrad at Ithaca College in Ithaca, New York. And then I did my master's at New England Conservatory in jazz guitar and jazz studies. So that's my background. I remind you of Paige Hamilton from Helmet. Okay. Now, people don't know, the people that don't know, I produce bands for a living and have done that for 20 some odd years. I do all different genres of bands, everything from singer-songwriters to very heavy rock. So when I saw Paige Hamilton, I knew who the band Helmet was. And if you don't know the band Helmet, they were a band in the early 90s that was one of the first big kind of drop tuning bands, and all their songs were in drop D. But this singer, Paige Hamilton, had a master's degree in music, and that's probably why they say I remind him of them. Anyways, so those of you that want the Beato book, once again, shameless plug, rickbeato1@gmail.com. Write to me, I'll tell you how to get it. Okay, so musical memory, how do you improve it? Well, there are general memory principles that are employed in memorizing anything. One of the first things that is called chunking. Chunking is memorizing small bits of information and stringing it together into large bits of information. The reason that phone numbers are broken up into small groups of digits and have dashes is because the brain can only remember certain amounts of things unless you employ certain memorization techniques. And there's memorization, there's like the memory palace and these kind of things that people would associate really odd things with them, with certain memories to memorize long groups of things. There's acronyms, things like that you will use in memory. But the best way to learn how to memorize things is by memorizing them. The more you memorize, the more that you get good at memorizing. The more numbers that you memorize, for example, as you memorize numbers, okay, Ron just said 7 numbers. Okay. So if I think of pi, for example, now I did a pi video with my kids the other day. 3.14159265358979323846264338327950288419716939937510 58209749458206816208998620883482253 421170169 or 17982 148086513282306 647 blah, blah, blah. Okay, so how did I remember pi? Well, I remembered it by chunking, okay? 3.1415, chunk 1. 3.1415, 926, chunk 2. 5358, chunk 3. 979, chunk 4. 5358. So 3.1415, 926, right? 5358, 979, 32384, 626, 433, 83279, 50288. Those are all chunks that I put together. 3.1415926535897932384. Eventually the chunk becomes one long string that is retained in your long-term memory, and it becomes part of your motor skills, just like practicing a piece and memorizing it. How do you improve your chunking? Somebody just asked there. I didn't even see who asked it, but you improve your chunking by chunking. Okay? So chunking is related to pattern recognition, which comes down to things like understanding how bits of information are put together. For example, chord progressions and figuring out how to chunk chord progressions. You do that with all your debit cards. That's funny because somebody asked me, do you know your bank account routing number? Somebody asked me that today because I said I was going to do a talk on this. And I was like, of course I know my bank account routing number and I know my accounts and I have passwords, all different passwords for all my different things that I do. I use different passwords. And I think some of that is that it drives my wife nuts because she wants to get in my account. She's like, why do you use different passwords for everything? I was like, I keep improving my memory. I'm 54, almost 55, I'll be 55 next month, and I want to have a super, super strong memory. And you can improve your memory in your 80s, in your 90s. That plasticity goes on forever. So the one thing you can't do perfect pitch because that plasticity is while your brain is actually developing. Because by the time you're 3, your brain has, I want to say 100 billion neurons or neural connections. And by the time you're 18, it has 50 billion. It's actually been pruned and cut in half, and it dispenses with things that it doesn't need. So I'm going to turn the camera around, and Ken is going to, Andy just called. That's funny. Andy, you just called, and I said that you called. I said for Ken to tell you not to call because I'm doing YouTube Live. So that's my friend Andy Lehman, who's a musician, and you can look up his YouTube channel too. Okay, so I'm turning it around to the board here. Okay, and I'm going to walk over here and switch places with Ken. You can keep asking questions this time because, and tell me if I'm centered here, Gio. Am I centered okay?
You're on the far left of it.
Okay, well, you can actually move that thing over a little bit so that it's, because I'm going to stand right here because I want this to be able to be seen, okay?
We're doing good.
How's that? Is that good?
Yeah, we're good.
And everybody's good on there? Okay. So this is a jazz tune here. And this is the tune Wave by Antonio Carlos Jobim. If you don't know Jobim, you should, because he's one of the greatest composers of all time. How many people are Brazilian that are watching right now and know Tom Jobim? Antonio Carlos Tom Jobim. I mean, he's the man. He was one of the greatest composers of not just bossa nova music, just of any kind of music. Phenomenal lyricist, singer, guitarist, everything, and wrote some of the most beautiful tunes of all times. We have anybody from Brazil commenting here?
My wife is Brazilian.
There we go.
Kyle Craven says that.
I know that we'll have plenty of people that watch from Brazil. I have a lot of people that are Brazilian that write to me and ask me about Jobim actually in particular. Okay, so this is a song called Wave. So Wave was my dad's favorite song, and I thought of this because of that. And it's a really odd song for Jobim songs because it has a really odd form. It has this introduction that's a 2-5 in C, okay? Now, how do you find the 5 chord? You always look for the dominant 7th chord. You know it's the 5 chord in a certain key. D minor 7 is the 2 chord, G7 is the 5 chord in the key of C, okay? Dorian to Mixolydian. You can play Mixolydian over the whole thing. You can play Dorian over the whole thing. But you got 4 bars of a vamp. A vamp is just a repeated chord progression that usually is like, will repeat over a certain amount of time. And it's used for soloing, it's used for introductions, things like that. Typically when people play Wave, they jam over the intro for a while, and then they start into the tune. This is the A section of Wave. Now, what's weird about it is it's kind of an odd chord progression, but it's a great chord progression. I've talked about it, I think, once before. It starts in D major, so you're in C major here, but really the sound you're hearing is this D minor sound. But it's a 2 chord. But then it goes to D major, so you're actually in D major for a second, okay? Then you go to a B flat diminished 7th chord, okay? This is an upward, this is a descending resolution to A minor 7. Now I've talked about 5-7 of, let's say this is A minor 7, D7, G major 7. So we're actually changing keys here because we see a dominant 7th chord. So right here, D7 is only in one key, which is in the key of G major. So we already know, if I look on this side of it, yep, that's the 2 chord in G major. What about on this side? That's the 1 chord in G major. Okay, so it's a 2-5-1 in G. Okay, this is how you start to remember patterns. Okay, so G, I'm going to circle the key of G. You got a G minor chord here. Well, G minor is definitely not in the key of G, so we've changed keys there, okay? So this B flat diminished 7th is a half step above A minor 7. This is actually common in jazz. You don't find it in classical music as much. This is a downward resolution, half step above to a minor 7th. This is actually very common, and you hear it a lot in Jobim tunes, actually. But you'll hear it in jazz. It's a common jazz chord progression. Okay, so this is actually something to memorize right here is this relationship. Half step down to a 2 chord, a diminished 7th chord resolving a half step down to the 2 chord in the key of G. So we start out in D major. So it's like, how do you memorize this? Well, you got to memorize this by doing this. I got 4 bars of a 2-5 in C major. Then I start in D major for 1 bar. Then I do a B flat diminished 7th resolving down by half step. So it's a diminished 7th resolving down by half step to a 2 chord. I have a 2-5-1 in G. Then I go to G minor 6. Well, G minor 6, if you think about it, is the notes G, E, B flat, and D, okay? I actually just thought of what the chord form would be on the guitar. That's like a standard drop 2 voicing there. So G minor 6, if you put a C in the base of it, is really a C9 chord. I'm going to put C9 here. C9. Or C7. C9. C9 is a C7 chord, okay? So that's a 5 chord right there. It's a 5 chord or that's a 5 chord in the key of F, okay? So we can call it G minor 6 or you can call it C9. They are the same chord, the same scale will work over both of them, but people typically will play a C Mixolydian sharp 11 over it, okay? Which will give you a G minor major 7th sound also. It's really a cool sound that sounds great on either chord. But that is a modulation there to G minor. You can also think of it as going to the relative minor, but a 6th chord, okay? So this is what's difficult about this, is that you've gone on the same route to a minor 6 chord. So these are things that you have to put in your memory here. You don't necessarily do it by harmonic analysis. You have to visualize these things because they're not easily analyzed in a way that would make you remember the chord progression quickly. Certain progressions like rhythm changes or all the things you are easy things to remember, but wave is not an easy thing to remember. That's why you have to figure out if there are patterns in it, and there's other ways that you can reharmonize it to remember it. And then you go into this really odd section here. F sharp 13 to F sharp 7 sharp 5 to B9 to B7 flat 9. This is a line cliche. A line cliche I talked about in my video about lines and internal lines in motion. Line cliches are when you have a line that moves chromatically between a series of chords. The line cliche is this. It starts on the 13th of F sharp, and I'm going to show you on my guitar here, which I have right here. Can you see this? Can you see my guitar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's this is an F sharp 13 chord. Okay, so I have the note D sharp here. D sharp moves to D natural, moves to C sharp, moves to C natural. That's a line cliche. Okay, so that is a way to remember that actually. That is a line cliche. And you've got just two different dominant chords. You have F sharp 7 for a bar and you have B7 for a bar. Okay, and then it goes to this B minor over E, which is essentially like an E11 chord. So what I would do, if you're looking in the real book, I would simplify this and I'd call this an E11 or an E sus to an E7. E7 sus, it's not really E7 sus 4, it's really D major over E to E7. But you're hearing that resolution of this. So he has all these really great internal lines here. So you've got So that's what makes Jobim's writing so great. You can reharmonize these things also. I could play, instead of, I could play, then I go, so, that's even cooler. So instead of F sharp 13, I went to C sharp minor 11 to a C7 flat 5, which is a sub for F sharp 7 sharp 5, okay? Tritone sub, so I went to this is actually a B7 sus 4 as a sub for that, for B7. B7 sharp 5 to E11 to E7 or E9, and then B flat 13 to, let's say, A7 flat 5. I'm always thinking of the top note of these chords, or to have an interesting internal line movement, whether you're doing the stock or ooh, that's cool. I like that. So there I went. I'm trying to keep this line moving here. So I did E11 to D flat major over E. Okay. Then I went to B flat 7 flat 5. So I'm moving this. Then you can go to A7 sharp 5. So right. So these patterns that you want to look at, though, you've got an F, basically F sharp 7, you have a B7, and you have an E7 here. These are the things that you need to remember. This is going to help you remember this. And then you have a tritone substitute going to, you get E7, B flat 7, which is a tritone away, to A7. If you thought about this here, this B flat 7, you have to think, okay, I got a tritone sub moving down to a half step and then to this 2-5, because this is a 5 of the D minor chord. That's a secondary dominant chord. So this is very tricky to remember because it doesn't follow along with, there's not a lot of 2-5s in it. So it's not really easy to remember. Now, you could make this a B minor 7 also. And you could say, oh, this is a 2-5 in A major. And that could help you too. So these are strategies to help you remember these chords. You could say this is a C sharp minor 7 to F sharp 7, because I actually played it as that. So this is really a 2-5 in B major. 2-5. This, you could go F sharp minor 7 to B7. That's a 2-5 in E major. 2-5. Okay, I've just actually made the chord progression much simpler here and easier to remember. And actually, it's cooler to reharmonize, and it'll be easier to improvise over, because most people that play wave can't play over these couple bars. They end up playing like a D minor pentatonic or something. You hear people, they just basically skim over those chords and really don't play over them. But they're great changes to play over, but they don't know how to simplify them in a way that's easy to remember and to improvise. Remember, to improvise, you have to visualize. You have to visualize the chord progression before you play it, so you know where you're playing and where you're going. Because you can't play into a chord. If you play, a lot of people will play, they'll plop on a chord and then they start playing. Then they hit the next chord, then they play over that chord. You have to connect your ideas, and it's called flow. And when I compliment a person, if I say, oh, that guy's got a great flow, or that woman has a great flow in her playing, that's what I mean. I mean that they're flowing from idea to idea. They're connecting their ideas with bridges, meaning that they will play a line that will lead into a chord change. Pat Metheny is great at doing this. Wes Montgomery, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, they play into the changes. They play into the next change and over the bar lines and connect ideas. The way you do it here, so I've just simplified this. B major, E major, A major. What do you notice about these? They're all fifth related, right? Think about your circle of fifths, right? And then we've got if you think about this being a 5-1 in D minor, it's really 5-7 of 2, going to 2 to 5. But this is really a 5-1 cadence in D minor right there. And this is a tritone sub of that. Okay? So I've simplified this chord progression. This you remember just by going to the minor 6 chord there. Okay? So the only tricky thing in here is really this diminished seventh that's resolving down. I have a video, I think, way back that I did early in my channel that talks about diminished seventh chords that resolve down by half step. I think it's in my video on secondary dominance and secondary diminished seventh chords. Most of the time in classical music, you have diminished seventh chords that resolve up a half step, just like secondary dominants do to their primary chords. So you have a diminished 7 of 2, let's say going to D minor, you'd have a C sharp diminished 7th resolving to D minor 7, okay? That would be a diminished 7 of 2 in this case. Or you could have a descending diminished chord, so E flat diminished 7th resolving down to D minor. And they come from completely different scales, but you have to know how to improvise over both of them. Okay, so this is wave. This is the A section of wave. Very tricky, but I've simplified it here. And I'm going to go D minor, right there. The key of D minor. Look at the relationships here. B, E, A, D. What do you notice about that? Circle of fifths, right? B major, E major, A major, D minor. Flows beautifully here. Much easier to remember this. Okay, now, let's talk about the bridge on wave. So the bridge, if you look in the real book, they have, let's see here. The bridge is just a series of 2 phrases. Well, essentially what it is this. And then this. But what Jobim plays here is he plays like a B flat, like a G minor 7 over B flat. Then he plays a C7 over B flat. Then he plays like F major 7 over A. And you'll see it like as an A minor. You'll see it as an A minor 7 chord in the real book. If you gotta listen to the recordings, then he does a similar thing here. Let's say he does this over B flat, then he'll do this over A flat, and then over G. I'll play it for you so you can hear what it sounds like. It's actually a great chord progression. It's very typically something that you would hear in bossa nova, and it essentially just comes out of inversions of these chords. Okay, so if you have so this would be the bridge of waves. So So this is like a B flat 6 chord or a first inversion G minor 7 chord. Then I'm going to a third inversion C7 chord. Then I'm going to a first inversion F major 7 chord. So it's F major 7 over A. Then I drop down to an A flat 6 chord, which is the first inversion of an F minor 7 chord, to a B flat 7 over A flat, which is a inverted. Think about that. It's got the 7th and the flat 7 in the bass. And then you've got your E flat major 7 over G, okay? And so that you could actually simplify and go. I could do it with tonic commission. Then. But it sounds cooler, and I think Jobim actually plays. All you have, though, are 2-5-1s, very simply. Ignore the bass notes. They're not important, really. These bass notes are not important here. You get C, you get G minor 7, C7, F major 7. This is an F major, it's a 2-5-1, 2-5-1, F major. Then you have a 2-5-1. Forget about these, unimportant. These inversions, don't be confused by them. Never be confused by inversions there. E flat major. 2, 5, 1 in E flat. Okay? Patterns. So you say, okay, I got D major 7, B flat diminished 7, A minor 7, D7, G major 7, G minor 6. Then I've got C sharp minor 7, F sharp 7, F sharp minor 7, B7, B minor 7, E7, B flat 7, or B flat 13, A7 sharp 5, then the vamp. Then I go to the bridge. I got 2, 5, 1 in F for 2 bars, 2, 5, 1 in E flat with our turnaround chord, which is A7 sharp 5, which is the 5 of the D major 7, because you're coming back with the A section one more time. Virtually all jazz standards, or most jazz standards, unless they're blues, they're a blues, are AABA form. What does that mean? That means the A section repeats 2 times, then there's the bridge, the B section, then there's A section one more time. And then the pattern starts over. So it's like AABA, AABA, AABA. And a lot of people get confused because on that, when it turns around, they won't remember, because you actually have 3 A sections in a row, if you think about it, when it's AABA. So you got to always be thinking of these things in your brain and visualizing them. You want to visualize these chord changes. I told this story. I don't know if I did it on one of my videos here, but I always tell the story that when I was a college professor, I used to make my students recite the chords of every song that they were working on as fast as they could. Because I always said that you can't improvise over a song if you can't visualize the lead sheet. So I would take a song like All the Things You Are, which has a long form and a lot of chords, and I would say, okay, you're going to improvise over All the Things You Are, you need to be able to recite the chord progression. Now, there's ways to remember the chord progression. It starts in the key of A flat. That's the key that the tune was written in. I mean, there's actually an introduction. Ba-da-do, da-da-da, 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 the Charlie Parker intro that everybody should know. But anyways, when it starts the tune, it starts on an F minor 7 chord, but you're in the key of A flat. And it goes 6, 2, 5, 1, 4, and then it changes keys to the key of C major. And it goes to C major for a couple bars. Then it goes 6, 2, 5, 1, 4 in the key of E flat major. And then it goes to G major. And then the bridge is in G major for 4 bars. And then it goes to E major. With a turnaround on a C7 sharp 5 chord, C augmented 7. And then the pattern starts over. But the last section is a little different. It starts out 6, 2, 5, 1, 4, but then it has a series of turnarounds that go into the ending. And that has to be memorized, okay? But I would say, okay, I want you to recite the chord changes as fast as you can. Okay, ready, go. F minor 7, B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7, D flat major 7, D minor 7, G7, C major 7, 2 bars. C minor 7, F minor 7, B flat 7, E flat major 7, A flat major 7, A minor 7, D7, G major 7, B minor 7, E7, A minor 7, D7, G major 7, G major 7, F sharp minor 7, flat 5, B7, E major 7, C7 sharp 5, F minor 7, B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7, D flat major 7, D flat minor 7, G flat 7, C minor 7, B diminished 7, B minor 7, or B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A flat major 7, turn around, G minor 7 flat 5, C7 flat 9, and then you're back at the top. So I just recited the chord chart to All the Things You Are. How did I do that? Because I can visualize it in front of me as if it's written out literally in front of me. I've internalized it from playing it and memorizing the progressions. Okay, 6, 2, 5, 1, 4 in A flat, 2, 5, 1 in C. 6, 2, 5, 1, 4 in E flat, 2, 5, 1 in G. Boom. Like that. You recognize the patterns of repetition and sequences in sound, as I say in our neural video with babies. Because babies, when they're born, the minute they're born, before they're born, they recognize patterns of repetition of speech. And they build algorithms for speech, just like they build algorithms for pitch, which is why Dylan can hear these things, because he built these musical algorithms by me playing him incredibly complex rhythm, or incredibly complex music and rhythm, including rhythm, by people like Aiden Essen. And if you haven't watched my Aiden video, you should watch it and share it with all your friends, because Aiden's the greatest improviser that I've ever heard, period. Anyways, these patterns are what you need to see, and you do it through chunking. You do it through things like additive learning. If you have a line and you're trying to learn a melody, additive, you will learn it by adding a note each time. So if it's, let's say you have let's say you're trying to memorize some type of a chord here, and I've got a G sharp minor 7 over F major 7 sharp 5, and I'll say, oh, I got to memorize how to build it. Well, F major 7 sharp 5 is on the bottom, so I've got an F, then I've got an A, and then I got a C sharp, and then I got an E, and then I got a G sharp. All right, so I'm starting to build these chords. The first chord I built is F major 7 sharp 5. And I think, what is a G sharp minor 7 chord? Let's see, G sharp. Well, maybe I'll change it to A flat minor 7. Let's do that. A flat. Make it easier to remember. Use these tricks. If things are difficult, go to the enharmonic where you don't have weird spellings of chords. A flat, and then I got C flat. Oh, I've got a weird spelling anyways, okay? E flat, G flat. So I get a weird spelling anyways for my A flat minor 7 chord, okay? If it was A flat major 7, obviously it would be this, right? So you give it the flat 7 to make it, to get it there, and then you give it there to minor, okay? Now, when I'm learning this, so this is A flat minor 7, but it's really A flat minor 7 over F major 7 sharp 5. So how do you learn this? Let's say I want to learn this arpeggio. Well, I'm going to practice it like this. F A C sharp, F A C sharp E, F A C sharp E, A flat, F A C sharp E, C flat, and so on and so forth. That's called additive learning. That's how you learn melodies. That's how you learn phrases. You start putting them together by practicing them one note. And anytime you do this, usually people can do them in 4-note groups, but don't do things in 4-note groups. Always carry on your additive learning to the beginning of the next phrase so you have transitions, because what you don't want to do is have blocking in your memory. You don't want to block things out. You want to continue ideas that go across the bar. Okay? If you have a bar of music here, you have a bunch of eighth notes, let's say, that you're playing, right? That you're memorizing. A phrase. Memorize it to the beginning of the next phrase. Always carry over the bar line. This is what aids your memory and will aid you in being able to perform things and not get you locked in what I call block learning. Block learning would be if you had 2 bars of eighth notes and you're learning a melody, don't learn them in this bar and then this bar. You learn them the first 8 notes plus 1, and you carry over the bar line. That's what helps your brain remember phrases. Okay? Great. I'm going to take questions now. I'm going to come around here. I'm going to turn the camera around. Let's see here. Can I flip it like that? All right. Now I'm ready here for you guys. And like I said, you can... I'm going to take questions for 8 minutes here. And you guys can ask me questions after the thing is over. Why do I play a yellow Gibson? Oh, what is the yellow Gibson? It's a Les Paul Jr. Why do I play it? It's a great guitar, and I think it looks cool on camera. It's really easy to play. I have flat wound strings on it. It's who is my intern, Max? That's Ken Lanyon. He's been working with me for 17 years. He's here every day. Not every day, but most of the days. He's been here every day for forever. He's my right-hand man, my left-hand man, everything. He helps me with everything. So he's always behind the scenes doing stuff. If you have questions, leave them in the comments below and leave me where everybody's from. And what is a good way to memorize atonal pieces? You use the same strategies whether it's atonal or not. Okay, let's see here. I have a 7-month-old. I've been playing him my guitar as well as playing jazz and symphonic music from stereo. What else do you recommend? Okay, kids only learn music when they're interacted with while you're learning. I would suggest you download my app, Neural, and do it with your kid. That's what I would suggest. That's the playlist that I did with Dylan that you can get it at the App Store or Google Play Store. There's a shameless plug there. Yes, I will do musical structure of Joe. Yeah, I'll do a video on Joe on his film scoring. I've been saying I was going to do that. Can you explain voicings for the songs that should be taught for piano? I don't. What do I think about books made to learn long series of number and generally improve? What does this say? Generally improve your memory. What do I think about books made to learn long series of number? You know what? To improve your memory, you have to memorize things. That's the only way of improving your memory. That's what keeps you sharp, no matter how old you get. My parents, my mom lived to be 90, and my dad lived to be 85, and they had incredibly good memories their entire life. Do I learn and see charts photographically, memorize the sequence and shape? Both. This is why I am able to make videos every day, really, is because I've retained all these concepts in memory through repetition. Repetition is incredibly helpful. Repetition is everything. I mean, whether you're chunking, whether you're doing additive learning, whatever kind of what you're doing, whether you're doing visualization, it's all about repetition. Wait, I just saw something about here. Let's see here. Can I make a video about Baroque harmonic techniques composers want to create for such music? I kind of am doing that because I'm going over all these, like, I'm doing these 2 videos on modulations, for example. I was going to do the second one today, but I'm going to do it tomorrow. And all these techniques on modulation are things that have been around since the Baroque era, the Classical era, and Romantic era. This is all like, this is all part of common practice era learning. Okay, if I learn 3.1 as much as possible, so the number helps my musical skills. Sorry, bad English. Anything that improves your memory will help your musical skills. I really believe that. I truly, truly believe that. Hold on, there's some other ones here. I'm trying to tap the thing here. Will this stay on the channel once it's done? Yes, it will stay on the channel once it's done. Can I explain? Let's see here. Solution for forgetting. Is the solution for forgetting that you know the theory in the moment of playing in real time simply repetition? That's pretty much it. Repetition is really the key for everything. It's doesn't matter who you are. Certain people have genetic predisposition for having good memories. There's no question about that. But any child, the time to learn this stuff is when you're a child, and teach your children things to improve their memory. You know how schools have gotten away from memorization? I'm on the school board at my kid's school, and memorization is just not, they don't really stress memorization these days. I'm a firm believer in memorization. The only way you get to have a good memory is by memorizing things. Let's see. Favorite modern classical guitar composer? Oh, there's many. I'll have to think about that. Do you think writing down helps your memory? Absolutely. Writing things down definitely helps your memory. There's no question. This is how composers used to learn how to orchestrate. This is how they learned music, is they would copy scores. There is plenty of evidence that the actual physical act of writing reinforces your memory tremendously, more than if you just look at it or recite it. The more senses that you have involved in memorization, the quicker you can retain things. So anyways, I see a lot of questions coming at me here, but I'm going to have to end it right now. I want you to leave in the comments all your questions. Leave me where you're from and anything you'd like to say. If you're interested in the Beato book, you can write me at rickbeato1@gmail.com. If you want to donate money to my channel to help me make even more videos so I can hire Ken to help me on my, because I have a new book I'm trying to finish and my ear training series, you can always donate to my PayPal, which is the same as my email that I give out. So anyways, thank you all for watching, and thanks for being here. Let's get up to 60,000 subscribers. We're at 53,000 now, and then we're gonna plow our way through to 100, and then I'm gonna have a big party. Do you always have to be so quick by ear to learn solos? Picking up Duane Allman a lot easier than Pat Metheny. Duane Allman's easier than Pat Metheny and Wes Montgomery. There's no question about that. But I love Duane Allman. It's very hard to play slide guitar. Anyways, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. I'm Rick Beato. Take care.